Thoughts on the BRICS summit? It was less eventful than I thought. Not that much of amazing announcements. What is BRICS? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. It's just a group of countries that are kind of out of the Western system, but are all growing. They have big economies. They're not even all necessarily friends, but they have economic interests that align, and they all want more power in the global system. You know, because the way everything's set up right now with NATO and the G7 is like, if you weren't a big dog at the end of World War II, you don't have a big say nowadays. It is clear that the BRICS countries are trying to set up a payment system to where if I'm, let's say I'm South Africa and I want to buy a bunch of goods from China, or actually maybe better ideas like Russia, right? Everybody uses the fucking dollar, all right? The greenback. Yeah, baby. And there's many, many reasons for this. One of the greatest ones being, you know, it's self-perpetuating. Everyone trades in the dollars, so the dollar is a great thing to have because you could use it to buy a lot of things, and it makes it easier to trade, so you want more dollars, and it's self-perpetuating. Until very recently, during the Russia-Ukraine situation, the United States crossed a line that they had not crossed before, which is they took all of the Russian foreign reserves and sanctioned them. They confiscated Russia's dollars, essentially. Once they did that, it sent a message that, hey, you know, almost every country, even American allies, are now thinking like, oh, wow, what if I'm ever on America's bad side? I could lose all my money. This was a big decision. It wasn't like realistically, even in a war, they probably shouldn't have done this. This sent a really bad message. I'm not saying this will happen, but if the dollar ever loses reserve currency status, it'll be because of this decision. Because once this happened, so many countries stopped putting as much of their excess money into dollars and instead into gold. If you look at the gold price, so much of that is driven by the fact that central banks have started buying gold way more than ever before. So I will say, like, this is an interesting point. And let's kick off the thing. So BRICS is about this. And what they're trying to do with BRICS is just have, like, if China wants to trade with Russia, Russia gives oil, China gives goods, and whatever's left over, whatever doesn't add up, they settle in gold. There's no possible way that BRICS can make an actual currency anyone will use, but they're trying to find a way where they're not going to use currency at all. That's the thing I've been trying to read more about, because if you tell someone that the dollar won't be the reserve currency, they'll say, what will be? And all the options are bad. The euro's worse, Chinese RMB is worse, the yen is worse. Like, there's no other currency that could replace the dollar, of course. The argument that is now being made is they're not going to have a currency at all. They're going to do trade for trade and settle the rest in gold. That's the idea. Or bluey bucks. The dollar is still the dominant currency, but central banks have been, when they have money left over, they're not keeping it in dollars. They're not buying US treasuries, they're buying gold. Whose smart idea was it to pull Russian dollar reserves? That's a great question. I'm not sure the brainchild behind it. The argument will be it's for the war effort. But I will say it was a risk. I mean, it was a big step, and a lot of countries understandably got spooked. Because, like, let's say you're like India. India is a great example. You're friendly with the U.S., right? You're friendly with the U.S., but like you might not always be friendly with the U.S. You're not like the closest best buddies forever, locked in for life. And if you're India and you're like, wow, we have all of this money from trade with the United States. We have all these dollars. Normally, we take these dollars and we buy American treasuries. We recycle it back into dollars. But like, that's scary because they can freeze that at any time, as they've proven with Russia. If we ever are on the bad side, they have all this power over us. So instead, they take the money and they buy gold. That is what's happening. It's happening right now. It's confirmed I mean, central bank gold reserves have been rising. The same thing I've been talking about with the incumbents losing just happened in Japan. The Japan ruling party lost an election for the first time in like 20 years. Even Japan, which is like a high trust, low conflict society with, you know, lower cost of housing. Even Japan, there's so much unrest. People are like, they want to throw out the leaders because inflation. Because they're seeing the price of goods rise. I am seriously noticing a rise in unrest worldwide. And if you dig even slightly under the surface, people are mad everywhere, and it's not like normal. It is not like everyone's always mad a little bit. People are getting madder, and it's in like every country you'll notice it. I am of 100% of the opinion there will be no revolution in China and no collapse in China. I just want you to know that. Just know that going in. I'm currently reading 2 books on China. I'm really trying to understand it more. I want to do one big presentation. There's so much to say. I want to call it the tale of 3 Chinas. I think people look at China, see so many different things, and make their own narrative based on things that are all true, but all true at the same time. If you looked only at EVs, you might be like, okay, China is thriving and dominating Western competition in manufacturing. They're way ahead. And you'd be right on that front. If you looked at real estate prices in major cities, you'd be like, wow, China's collapsing. They have millennials that are completely underwater financially. And you'd be right. Construction of high-speed rail, you'd be like, wow, they're thriving. If you looked at the cost of the high-speed rail, you'd be like, they're collapsing. You'd be right on all of these. All of this stuff is true, but it's all in the same spot. And so there's like, I think 3 different Chinas. People only look at one and they make up their mind. And I want to try and put them all together and show you it's a complicated country. So I don't think anything like that is happening, but I do think China has a problem. They had 40 years of growth. And when you have 40 years of growth, your government can do whatever the fuck it wants. People are happy. They don't care about if they can vote a different party in or whatever. They don't care. But when the growth slows down is when more unrest appears and you have to start doing things that are like for your constituency. Yeah, I think there's going to be some issues, but I don't think revolution or collapse are either in the cards. Will you do the same one on Mexico in the future? Yeah, but the problem with Mexico, and I hate to say this, my wife is Mexican, her family's Mexican. We've been to Mexico. I'm going to Mexico over the holidays. I love Mexico. But I feel like I'm doing Mexico a disservice, but every time I talk about it, talking about cartels and the drug war, but also you can't talk about Mexico without mentioning that. If I talk about Mexico and don't mention that, I feel like I'm being wrong because it's so impactful. But when you do talk about it, it's like you're perpetuating this, I don't know. It's something I don't know how to handle. I mean, because politicians are getting murdered all the time in Mexico. And so if you ignore it, you're basically whitewashing it. And if you only talk about it, then it's a problem. So I guess I just need more nuance. I need more understanding. Why isn't this a problem in other places? Well, Mexico is uniquely dominated by drug cartels because of its proximity to the United States, which is the biggest drug buyer. America loves buying drugs. So Mexico has developed a cartel state to supply the drugs. There's so much money in it that they have so much power that they can stand up to the government. Please give me one positive global policy stuff. Yeah. That's kind of an unfair question because global policy is not usually, doesn't even come up unless it's negative. Do you know what I'm saying? Global policy is like defense pacts, trade wars. What's gonna come up that's gonna be, it's not like yeah, Mudang is cute. Oh, panda diplomacy, if you want something smaller. China sent pandas back to the United States. That's good. Oh, you know what was an interesting story? This is kind of good news, but also a little scary, but I think overall good news. So TSMC, the big chip production company in Taiwan, set up a factory in Arizona. And everyone thought, well, it's not gonna work, right? Because even they said we have a hard time finding talent in Arizona. Well, recently, the first batch, again, these are not like the tiniest, best chips, but the first batch of chips came out and they had yields that were higher than the ones in Taiwan. Shockingly, they did pretty good. On the one hand, this could mean less chance of World War III, right? Because Taiwan is no longer so fucking desperately important for all nations that any act there would lead to tit for tat, nuclear war or whatever. But on the other hand, it also means that Taiwan is less safe. Now they're less likely to be defended by other countries because if they can, you know, it's a weird tit for tat. However, I do think on the whole, making Taiwan less of a key man for world events is just probably a good thing. At the end of the day, I just don't want the world to go to World War III over Taiwan. So it's pretty interesting, pretty good, but it was a shocking result because I remember the TSMC CEO saying, we can't find good talent in America. We can't get this Arizona chip up and running, but it's starting to work. It's also good because it puts competition on Intel. I'm so annoyed with Intel being such a cluster failure that it'd be nice if this took off. And I think TSMC had American production facilities. It'd be awesome. There was a lot of people that said once Russia started the Ukraine war, that with all of the sanctions that Europe and America put on them, their economy would be dead in no time. And that didn't happen. And so everyone was like, oh, maybe their economy's fine because Russia found a way to sell oil to China and India, right? So they still had money, still had income. However, they've been spending so much on the war for so long and they've lost so many lives, you know, prime-aged male lives, that it has to eventually catch up to their economy. And I think I've been reading more and more that's happening. Do you think invading North Korea would work for Russia? That is the dumbest question I've ever heard in my life. No, it's not. Not the dumbest on this stream. Not even the dumbest in the last 5 minutes, but it's dumb. Why the fuck would Russia go invade North Korea? North Korea is the only country on earth that sent Russia troops and they're gonna go invade them. You think Putin's thinking, ha, I got all the troops out of North Korea to go help me out. That's when they're open to invasion. Genius, 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 genius. They would never expect it.